Me too.
All right, I think we can start. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Let me know if you cannot hear me so that I can adjust the volume. But I want to believe everybody can hear me well. Um, my name is Femi Akindeji, um, and I'm glad to have you all join this session tonight. I'm really excited because of the speaker that we have tonight. I'm speaking to you from Rochester, in Medway in the United Kingdom. So it's 7 o'clock our time. I'm sure it's 8 o'clock in Nigeria and maybe about 1 or 2 p.m. in Canada because I can see some people joining from Canada today. So as usual, for people that have been with us since the start of November, this is a series that we've started just to celebrate the interesting people that have been privileged to work with this year through a fellowship program called the Starting Point Zone Fellowship Program. And they've devoted their time just to work with me on a journey of vision development, goal setting, financial literacy, and personal innovation. So just to celebrate that journey and to, kind of set them on their path in life, we decided to have this special guest series for November. And this is the third that we're doing. The first one, we had Mr. Delia Oladoku from Ontario, Canada, speaking to us. Last week, we had Mrs. Ofenegu Ufili, who is a photographer and a film artist. coming in to speak with us, which was an interesting session for me personally. And today we have somebody that is as much interested, who is already in the house as well. Before I bring him onto the podium to give his talk, I would just quickly tell you a little bit more about SPZ Fellowship Program. I will say that if you've not been with us since the first series, you can get into our YouTube channel to watch the videos of the first two series. And I think in the first session, I took a lot of time just to explain what the fellowship program is about, and the content, the logistics, and what our future plans are. So I'm not going to repeat that tonight just to save time. So I would say that go on YouTube, find our channel, the Starting Point Zone, and you can watch that first episode, and you get all the information there. We're on Twitter, as you can see, Starting Point Zone as in SZN, and you can follow us with all the information that are on there. The only thing I'm going to say is, just like I've mentioned, SPZ, we focus on these four cardinal principles that we believe is essential to living, and it's called vision development, goal setting. The M stands for money, but ideally it's about financial literacy, and the T stands for technology, which is can also be related to personal innovation, which is also the theme that we are focusing on this month. Because as technology is a tool for business, you need an innovative mind or mindset, to be able to re-engineer yourself and give yourself a leverage, to wherever direction that you want to go in life. So that's all I'm going to say. You can also, check the details on our website. It's audiotrinidad.com. I think there are quite a number of information in there. So tonight we're going to have Mr. Tunde Agoro. Mr. Tunde Agoro is based in Bristol in the United Kingdom, and this is his profile that I just pull up on my screen. I'm just going to read it and then give him the floor. As a chartered environmentalist and sustainability consultant with a passion for people, places, and design, Tunde has nearly 20 years of hands-on experience in the building design, construction, and commercial real estate industry. He leads the technical delivery of associated strategies for a wide range of projects with a varied skill set evidenced by his background in architecture, environmental design and management, environmental engineering, sustainable development, and project management. He was the lead environmental assessor across the Southwest and Wales, and one of the first qualified World Building Standard accredited professionals in the UK. He is also an external industrial tutor at the Welsh School of Architecture at Cardiff University, and the University of West England, and the University of Bath, where he also sits on the Department of Architecture and Civil Engineering's Industrial Liaison Panel. I think on a personal note, Tunde is my very good friend. I think it's also a British scholarship scholar, if I remember very well. And it's somebody that is it's been a privilege, knowing him and working with him. So I just want everybody to join me and welcome Mr. Tunde Agoro as he takes us through, the theme that we have for the month and share his personal experience with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Femi Akindeji. What an introduction. Yes, as Femi said, my name is Tunde, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to be with you guys I know, like Femi said, we go way back. He's a very respected friend, and when he invited me, I was like, my Oga. I must definitely make myself available. And beyond that, I think we both share a passion for mentoring and people development, and we believe in, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go further, you go together. And we're quite both focused on community, not just individual brilliance, which is something Nigerians we are quite noted for globally, you know, but in terms of collective, achievement and delivery, across, all spheres of life, I think it's an area where we could do a lot better. And I think this is one of the things which, Femis are trying to address with Starting Point Zone, through this community to build minds together, so that we can all go much further together. So thank you once again for having me on. I can see there's uh, there's a range of participants from different parts of the world, so which is good. Femi mentioned to me that the theme for for this month, and particularly for my talk, is personal innovation. So just because it says personal innovation, I've decided to take it very personal. So on that note, it might surprise you a little bit. I've decided not to dazzle you with any presentation slides or whatever. So I'm doing away with that. So if you like, you could see this as a village roundtable, conversation, around what personal innovation means for me, means for you. So again, I'm giving a very personal perspective on this. So hopefully it complements everything else you've heard. I don't know if it's possible for people to, share the videos that might help, but if you can't, that's okay. I can understand maybe there might be around boundaries and all that kind of stuff. But if you're able to share your video, that's good. It makes it even more personal, if you see what I mean. So, like I said, I will try to share from a very personal experience on innovation. So, to start with, I like to define innovation. So, I'm not going to try and give a textbook definition for innovation because I'm sure we've all looked into that already. I think innovation is three things. Innovation is a product. Innovation is a process, and innovation is also a path. So you can look at innovation as a finished article, or you can look at innovation as a process to get into a finished article. You could also look at innovation as a path in life that you take. Now, I think that speaks to the thing, it's personal innovation. So innovation for you as a person, speaks to your path, which is basically your lifestyle, how you live, how you think, and informs every action you make and every decision you make. So people also look at innovation as new stuff, as a change of direction. So I think when we talk about personal innovation, it's all about change management in your life, how make course correction interventions at every step and stage of your life, and it's critical because someone said, I think it was Albert Einstein that said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And a lot of us can be stuck in a rut, sometimes, and we just believe that qui sera sera, whatever will be, so long as my heart is in a good place, I believe in God, it will all turn out all right. Actually, it doesn't, until you make a change. until you take deliberate steps and action. You keep going on in the path that you might have chosen. So I want to talk about myself a little bit. So when I say talk about myself, just share a bit of my background. And in talking about myself, I want to touch on three things. The first one is garbage, and then the second one is grief, and the third thing I would probably end up with is grip. And if time allows, we might have a general discussion around the price for personal innovation. So starting with garbage, I want to go back to the beginning of my journey as a professional. So it all started, in the most beautiful campus in Nigeria, Obafemi Awolowo University. Some of you might want to dispute that. You can argue with yourself. But I'm a product of Great Ife, where I studied architecture. And it wasn't by accident that I went into architecture. I come from a family of people that are quite gifted with mathematics. So my dad, my sister, brother, siblings, they're all accountants. Everybody in my family is an accountant. And I was quite fortunate to win math prizes throughout, you know, secondary school as well. So I think I know a little bit about numbers, but there was something I found unique to myself was I could draw. And everybody else in my house couldn't. If you give my mom a Coke bottle to draw a circle, she'll probably draw a crab for you, you know. But I had a very keen, a very, very refined mind, eye, and coordination. I could draw from memory. I could draw from sight. I loved to create and put things together. And my uncle, blessed memory, looked at me and said, "Look, Tunde, look, you are an architect. Though. If you combine your math and your art together, you make a brilliant architect." And that was how I went into architecture. You right from secondary school, I knew that was what I wanted to be. That's what I wanted to do. So I found, what I believe was my niche very early on. And I believe previous speakers on this program have already mentioned perhaps about finding your unique talent, finding your USP, and finding your why, your purpose, and all those kinds of things. They're very important things, for personal innovation. So I'm not going to labor on all of those. I'm going to just go more into my story, really. So I found my USP, I found my why very early on, which is why I did architecture. And I was sold out into it. I gave it 110%, and believe it or not, I landed my first job in my second year in uni. If I wonder how did that happen? How come you got a job in your second? Well, it's because there was a design competition. It was a Western zonal competition. So all architecture schools in West Africa were brought together by a consortium of architects from Lagos. And I was the only year two student that went in there. Everybody else was in 4, 5, 6. I'm from all different universities. People thought, I better go and sit down. This is not for you. But I was determined to do something different. I wanted to challenge myself, And to cut a long story short, I won that competition, And people thought, wow, how did you do it? It must be a fluke, So they ran a second edition of the competition in Unilag, and I won it again. And I said, oh, wow, this guy, there must be something, to him. He must know one or two things, And they offered me a job there and then. Now, all of this did not happen by accident. There was stuff that I did. There were steps and actions that I took. I'll give an example. There was a time when the university went on strike for about 6 to 9 months, and everybody went home. They were doing their different things, So they asked me, what did I do? I went to Unilag, to the School of Architecture, and I went to stay with one of my friends, a senior friend actually, 2 years ahead of me, and I went to stay with him. and I'll go to their studio and architectural classes every day. Now, my university was on strike. Everybody was at home. They were jollophing, flangering, doing all sorts of things. I was still in school. And I learned something different, a different perspective to architecture from the way it's taught at Unilab. And I was able to embrace that. I learned how people were engaging with different sorts and sources of information. Immediately, I signed myself up for an architectural journal magazine, which is, published in the United States. It wasn't cheap, but there was so much information that was coming out of that. And what I did not realize was I was exposing myself to pearls and gems that informed my thinking as an architect. First of all, I surrounded myself with peers, that were somewhat 2 or 3 steps ahead of me, like-minded people, who had gone ahead, and I was learning a lot from them. Secondly, by subscribing to the architectural journal, this is from my year one I'm talking about here, I was allowing the thought processes of established and renowned international architects to start to inform my thinking. I mean, it was no accident that when I got back to school from my year 2 onwards, I was not the same person because my thinking had changed. I had innovated. Now, that is the point I was making about garbage. Now, I didn't give you the whole point then. It's not actually just garbage. It's garbage in, garbage out. What you get out of anything is dependent on what you put into it. You as a person and as an individual, in any situation, in any space, in any sphere, you find yourself, all right? It's all dependent on what you have inside. It's what you deliver. You can't conjure things just out of nothing. Someone says when you squeeze an orange juice must inevitably come out of it. When you squeeze a mango juice will inevitably come out of it. The question is, when you are squeezed, what comes out of you? Well, it depends on what's inside of you. So it is what you invest into, what you put within yourself. There's a principle in chemistry called osmosis. So, things flow from low to high pressure. Is it from high to low pressure? Something like that. So it depends on what you surround yourself with, and what flows into you. Your eye gates, your ear gates, you got your mouth gate. So you've got to check it, and you've got to be deliberate and intentional about who do you want to be. Do you want to be a Mark Zuckerberg? Do you want to be a Bill Gates? Do you want to be, a Fela Kuti? What do you want to be? And then that begins. You should then ask the question: what do you have inside of you? What are you carrying inside of you? What are you filling yourself with? So and that was quite key, which is why I wanted to start with that point about garbage in, garbage out. It's not about going to the most expensive universities. It's not about going to Harvard or, they help. Don't get me wrong. But you can pass through a university and the school never passes through you. You don't need to go to the most expensive universities to be a great success. It's what you put into it. What you put into it. So garbage in, garbage out. So that was, I believe, was the second step, in my journey towards success as a professional. The first was identifying, my USP, identifying my gifts, my talents, my proclivities. What are my strengths? What were the things that came to me naturally? It was numbers and it was art, and by putting those two together, it felt like architecture was a natural, and it was indeed, because I think it's not pride to say I made a big success of it. from uni, graduating top student in my department, landing a job in my second year, and so much so that even after I left uni, I was being pulled into contract jobs by the top architectural firms in Lagos, say, okay, come and do 3-4 weeks with us. Just come and help us with this design concept. And I was just making some small money on the side, in that process. So it did work, so that was the first step. The second step was investing in myself. As early as my first year, I was spending money on material, extra stuff, not my textbook, not recommended reading materials. These were additional stuff. I searched for them, I sought them out, and I filled myself with those things. And inevitably, they shaped me, they formed me. I remember Bishop David Oyedepo said one thing once, that there are two things that will shape a man's destiny: the books they read and the friends. I think I can relate to that personally. It was the things that I read, and it was the friends that I kept, and it shaped the journey of my professional career. It put me on a solid, strong front foot. So my journey didn't end there. Obviously, as Femi mentioned, I'm based in Bristol now, in the UK. So I got very passionate, about buildings and the impact they have on the environment. The turning point for me was when I looked at the impact of oil exploration and exploitation in the Niger Delta region and the devastating impact it had on communities, on livelihoods, on families, on the environment. And it was just ridiculous. But I didn't believe I had a platform, for me to say anything about it. And I thought, you know what, I need a platform to be able to engage on this matter. And I thought maybe it'd be a good idea to study something along those lines. So that was how I applied for the Chevening Scholarship, which is administered by the British Council on behalf of the Foreign Commonwealth Office in the UK, to study environmental engineering and sustainable development at Imperial College here in the UK. And yeah, I got it, which is fantastic. So I went from architecture to engineering. Now, take note there, that is innovation, whether you want to accept it or not, because it was new, it was a change of direction. I picked up another passion. I picked up another interest, something that my heart could not let go of. It was a cause bigger than me. At that point, I made a decision in my career. It was a big decision. I had a very successful architectural, career already growing and building. I had a meeting with the MD, of UBA, and I was being offered a job as project manager for Nigeria to roll out 200 branches. It was a big time job. The money, when I saw the money, I was like, But I wasn't tempted by that because there was this cost. There was something on my heart that was bigger, and I came on and I did that program. And on the back of that, successfully completing it, I landed a job in the UK. That was after I left. Actually, I did the job. I finished my master's, came back to Nigeria, to try and implement some of my thoughts. And it was very difficult. It was very challenging, as you would expect. But I got called back into the UK by a company to come and work with them. And I started journeying in the world of sustainability. So this is where grit comes in. That's the second thing I wanted to talk about. There is a difference between the ideal and then the reality. I had an idea at the back of my mind that I will go on, do this master's program in Imperial. I will come back to Lagos and I will transform Nigeria just like that. That was what was in my head. But the reality was I came back to Lagos and I tried to sell the idea that we can do things differently, that buildings can perform better than what they're doing. I was very privileged to have a brother who is a bit connected politically. So I had an opportunity to speak to a few ministers, which was fantastic. And some commissioners in Lagos to talk about, let's do things differently. Let's, I ventured into waste management as well to say, there's a way we can, you know, we package how this is done, to be more efficient. And believe me, all what they were interested in is what's in it for us. How can we make money out of it? I'm like, this is not what this is about, you know. And it was frustrating for me because it didn't work. So what do you do then? Do you give up? Do you throw in the towel? The reason why I'm saying this is in life, you will encounter this roadblock, no doubt. Everybody does. This is why grit is so essential to success. And this is where you need personal innovation. So when the roadblock comes, do you bore a hole through it? Do you go around it? Do you go over it? Do you go underneath it? It takes innovation to be able to find alternative solutions rather than giving up. But anyway, I went on to the UK and I thought, let me learn a bit more about sustainability. And I started to do that. And that is what I've been doing for the past 10 years, I'll be honest with you. And I found my peace here. Whilst ideally I thought this is what I was going to do in India, but actually this is what I've been here for and to do. But still, coming into the UK, working here in UK PLC, it wasn't a stroll in the park or a bed of roses. There were lots of challenges. I worked with bosses that didn't like me that much because I was this black boy from the jungle of Nigeria that knew too much, that was so passionate, that was always wearing colorful TM shirts and pointed shoes, dressing more fashionable than the bosses, And I was a very friendly face. They asked me, "Oh, how was your weekend on Monday?" I want to tell them everything that happened on Sunday, the church experience, the pastor that nobody wanted to know all of those nonsense I was talking about. and there was a clash, a cultural clash, and I had lots of issues, lots of challenges. I had a boss that didn't like me from here to there, and he did all sorts of things to extinguish my professional career in that company. Great. I was being knocked down day after day, week after week, but I had to pull myself back up. Great. In your professional career, you will come to the point where you might work with terrible bosses. You don't choose your boss. Just like you don't choose your family. The same way you don't choose your work family. Sometimes you might get the option of moving from department to department, which is what I eventually did. But what if you work with colleagues that they plot against you, they conspire against you? What if you work with a client that is particularly difficult and demanding? Great, resilient, the ability to take a knock and to rise and rise and rise again. And I think this is not something I can teach to Nigerians because I think we have gone through quite a fair bit. Reflecting on the recent NSAS protest, for example, as well, it shows, a lot, and it takes a lot of heat, to be able to recover, from that kind of position and to keep fighting, So I do know that this is something that we almost are born with. But I want to make a distinction between grit and gira. They are not the same things. All right? So grit is resilience with purpose. All right? So it's not just a case of, right, I'm just going to, bulldoze myself through every situation and, no, it's reasoned, it's considered. It has a focus, it has a direction. You're not just going headstrong into a situation, but because first you understand your value, you understand your worth, you know your why, you're firmly rooted in your purpose, and you know what your objectives are. So when obstacles come, you know how to respond. Sometimes you can actually even preempt them before they arrive. And then you start to take, preventative action. That is grit. That's not gra-gra. Sometimes people think they have grit, but actually it's not grit. It's just gra-gra. Because it's blind. It's not heading anywhere. It's just brute force. But it becomes grit, when it is, based on intelligence, it's based on the vision, on the purpose, and some clarity as well. All right. So that's the second thing. How am I doing for time? All right, great. All right. The next thing the third thing I was going to talk about is grip. So I've talked about garbage in, garbage out. Being sure of what you carry inside of you. And I studied architecture in Lagos, in Nigeria, and I had seen lots of people design some terrible buildings, and they would stand in front of their critics and jurors, and they would confidently talk rubbish and defend what they are saying, And a lot of us engineers can be quite good at that as well. So I want to talk about grip, and grip is very related to grit as well. It's about having a grasp, of your subject matter. So you're an accountant. Are you a communications engineer? Are you a data analyst? Whatever you are, how much do you command in terms of knowledge and understanding on that particular subject matter? That's grip. You need that to be able to innovate. You need that to be able to, make changes, because you need a strategic understanding, of a subject matter to be able to see beyond the current norm, beyond the status quo, to be able to see possibilities. So if you don't know enough, then you really can't see possibilities. So it's about breadth and depth in a particular subject matter. That's what gives you grip. That's what gives you a, I want to go back to my experience in the UK. I did say that, I had issues in the beginning. It was a very rocky, journey. But over time, when people started to recognize, my knowledge and my technical understanding, of buildings architecturally and also in terms of sustainability, I started to build a reputation. Trust started to grow. And my peers started to respect me a lot. So much so that I have recruitment consultants and headhunters calling me and saying they heard about me. That this person said this, that person, and, a recruitment agency once was speaking to, a company about me, and they said, oh, we know him, and it's reputation. But that grew, from having grip, So I also know there's a place for people called mavericks or generalists, so a thing or two about everything. That's essential. It's essential for a well-rounded human being to have, a bit of a knowledge of, issues, across, geopolitical, science, religion, professional, technical, whatever it is, But we're speaking, specifically about your career now. So in your company, you could have various departments. So having an understanding of what every department does, is quite useful because you're not working in isolation. There could be an impact on an innovation you do on other departments and vice versa. Right? So it's good to have that general understanding, but you need a rooting in your subject matter. Nobody can fault you, if you don't know what the, account and finance team, are doing in any detail when you are an engineer. But you fall into a very slippery slope if as an engineer, you don't understand the impact of your service and design. So it's important we have grip and a thorough grasp. And I've seen too many superficial, Nigerians, too many superficial professionals, and they try to blag things. They just gather this peripheral knowledge on things, and they then embellish it, and I think it can only get you so far. All right. And I'm touching on a very important issue here. Be deliberate, to be, the best in your field. Be deliberate, you understand, to be the guru, the pillar of knowledge in that particular field area where you are in. And that gives you grip. All right. And it leads to a lot of things: reputation, increase in reputation, trust, respect, and what have you. And like I said, it gives you a very firm grasp, and it gives you strategic understanding of that area. And because of that, you can start to see and map trends in terms of future direction and travel. You can start to give value to the organization by saying, actually, from what I've seen in the past, from what I'm seeing, from my understanding of these systems and these activities, it would make sense to start to go in this direction because things are tending towards this way. But if you don't have that understanding, you can't make those calls. You're going to be reacting, and basically you're on the back foot. But you want to be on the front foot. You want to be on the cutting edge. That's what personal innovation is all about. But you can't be in that place unless you build those foundations. It's essential. There's no shortcuts to it. There's no quick fix to it. There's no quick 4-5 steps to personal innovation. First of all, it's grounded. Root yourself in. Embed yourself. Immerse yourself. Enthuse yourself into it. Become a tea bag inside water. Just take over that cup of tea. Fill it with your flavor. Immerse yourself in it. And you can only do that if, one, you love what you're doing. It's in your passion, it's in your interest, or it relates to a cause you believe in, that is larger than you. And it's very important that those are your key motivations. Sometimes we go into careers just because of money. Oh, this is going to give me money. This is going to give me money. But money can only take you so far. And I think money is essential, and we'll come to that, I'm sure, in further conversations and sessions. And talking about money as well, just so you know, I'm also on the path of personal innovation because I've just started my own company as well. And my company is all about financial freedom, So it's also related to what I've been doing for the past 15, 20 years. Again, it's another change of direction. All right. Innovation has to take place at every step of the way in your life. And timing is very key. So that takes me to the final thing I wanted to talk about today, and which is the price of innovation. How does innovation happen? How can you innovate personally as an individual? I would say, first of all, the first thing to think about is curiosity. How curious are you? Someone said once that necessity is the mother of invention. The idea is that curiosity is the father. People make changes, they create things because they are pushed to a wall, to a corner. But why wait till you're desperately in the corner? On the flip side, if you're curious enough, you can actually create things. If you start to ask the right questions, That was what has led to one of the greatest inventions we have seen in the world today. Social media, for example, Facebook. Somebody asked the question, what if, you know, we can get all of us together, in this school on a platform where we can relate digitally and communicate, and voila, Amazon. It wasn't necessity that created Amazon. It was curiosity. Somebody asking the question, what if? Tesla. It wasn't necessity. It was curiosity. What if? And I think it's very good that we start to challenge ourselves. And I think, and it's not very easy to do it. It's easier to see other people and to ask them questions and to challenge them. But I think when we can start to apply that level of criticality to ourselves, we are doing ourselves a whole lot of good. And I had to ask myself that same question. What if I don't have to do 9 to 5 anymore? What if I can do my job from a beach, in Spain, or while I'm on a plane flying from Paris to Switzerland? What if I don't have to log in at 9 and close it? I mean, what if? And you got to ask yourself that question. So curiosity, but again, rooted in curiosity is awareness. Being aware of yourself, being aware of where you are, being aware of, your position in your career, in your organization, and what you're doing, that can help you to ask the right question. So curiosity, that's one. Secondly, time. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a snap of a finger. It takes time. And you've got to allow it, because sometimes, when you ask a question, you have to research. The answers don't come immediately. All right. And then the third thing is application. And I'm going to close on that note. So it's one thing to have an understanding of a subject or of a concept. But if you don't apply it, that understanding is worthless. It's pointless. The application is where the rubber meets the road. And this is where some of us might struggle. This is where we start to see procrastination. People putting things off because it's not convenient. Innovation is never convenient. It's not always, change is never convenient. There's something called the law of inertia. Isaac's, is it the third principle of physics, or is it the second or first? It might be the first, actually. Gosh, I'm challenging my my knowledge of physics secondary school. Right. So there's that law of inertia. An object will resist change in its current state, whether it's rest or motion. So it's not convenient to change, to innovate. If you like your convenience, I'm not sure you'll do very well with personal innovation. You must be prepared to always go out of your comfort zone. And I think for every one of us here in Starting Point Zoom, we've already put ourselves, out of our comfort zone. And I salute you all, on a Saturday night, you are here, listening to this old man talking to you, when you could be watching Netflix, or you could be chopping asun somewhere, with your friends and all that, or whatever. You're paying a price, which is great. You're investing in yourself, which is great. But as you're receiving some of all these little nuggets and information, it's not the amount of information you get. It's the amount of information you keep and apply. Application is key. I'd rather get one piece of information and apply it than get 100 and apply none. So you must be ready to roll up your sleeves and do the work. All right. So I talked about innovation. So to recap very quickly, as a product, a process, and a path, and I've brought it home to us that in terms of personal innovation, it's actually a path, you know. And I have been, incidentally, I've been reading the book, because I belong to a mentoring network as well. And we pick a book which we read and we study every month, and we review it every Saturday morning. And incidentally, this month we've been doing this book by Andy Stanley called The Principle of the Path. I don't know if you can all see it. Yeah, if you can write it down, that would be great. Andy Stanley, The Principle of the Path. And it's about how to get from where you are to where you want to be. This book has revolutionized my thinking, and I dare say that it will change your thinking as well, and will definitely launch you on the path of personal innovation. One of the key things coming out of this book, that I've picked up is a point he made about direction. And I'll quote it to you. He says, direction, not intention, determines our destination. Direction, not intention, determines our destination. So you might have the best intention, you might have the great vision, some fantastic plan set out for your life. But until you start to take specific steps, along the path, you really might not get to, where you desire to be. All right. So on that note, I want to say thank you very much. And I hope my little personal story has been of some benefit to you, and you've picked one or two things from there. But I'm open to any questions that you may have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. I think that's an Harvard delivered yeah, seminar. I think it's really powerful. I mean, in less than 1 hour, I can't even start to unpack, everything that you've said, and you've kind of summarized it so, great that it's kind of covered everything we've been talking about over the past 6, 7 months within the fellowship program. So talking about the garbage in, garbage out, ability to, have a focus, have a vision, recognizing, the gift that you have in you and using that to channel, and use it as a springboard, to wherever direction you want to go in life. A lot of things here, about interesting how you spend your time when there was strike, which is, definitely out of the norms because everybody, it's time to party, it's time to have fun. You decided to lock yourself to lock yourself into a studio. I mean, that's something that is definitely not a common thing to do. And also being, at that age, knowing that you can actually benefit, surrounding yourself with peers and also people that are a bit ahead of you so that they can, lead you and point you to the way. I think it's just some of the things that we've been talking about that I hope that everybody on the call, will have a reference point to. And in terms of having a group, I think that's just so important, because every day is full of its own challenges. And if you don't develop that resilience, to ensure that, yes, there might be the ideal, but the reality will always, come up at the time, whether you like it or not. And the ability to, look inward and bring forward solution, to that particular point in time, I think it's just so essential. How you respond to obstacle, how do you, even with that, ensure that your focus, is still to the direction that you want to go, rather than you say, "Oh, this is too, this is too much. I can't go further," and then just lose hope. in that, and having a grip, I think is just so essential. Just like you said, you have to be known for something,
Yeah,
and whether you like it or not, people will actually know you for something. But,
absolutely.
but whether that something is what you really want that people
True.
to know you for, I think it's where because people will definitely have an opinion about you. They will have perceptions about you, but the more, depth of understanding and, being transparent and not taking shortcuts in what you do. And also immerse yourself. I like that tea bag example. You just immerse yourself and release your flavor and let people,
Mm.
enjoy and taste what you have. I think it's just so important. And yes, price is just so is a daily reality. That whatever is important, whatever it's have a substance, there is always a price, to pay. And whether you are willing to do it or not is a question of, how committed you are to your dreams and to your vision. So thank you so much. This has been so powerful. I'll have to go back and listen to this. I have to go back and listen to it again. So I would just encourage everyone, if you have a question, I think this is the time to send it in. Today I have just a couple to start with, just to have a bit
Okay,
of
sure.
dialogue, an interaction while people send in their questions. So let's start. So about starting point, you've been, a very, good collaborator, and someone that is interested in the vision as well. So what would you say, is the role of vision development and goal setting, in your career progression today?
Right. I think that that's very key. It's fundamental, and for me, I had to define for myself, what success meant for me, at the very early stage. Uh, because if I didn't have that clarity, in terms of vision and purpose, I would have been frustrated, a long time ago. So for me, coming into the UK to practice and work as a sustainability consultant, it was very clear for me. I wanted to be the choice consultant, full stop, on sustainability. It wasn't about the money. The money came. There was, I mean, I'm not saying yeah, the salary is not too bad. I'm not complaining too much. But that wasn't the focus for me. It was about the opportunity. It was about, immersing myself, like I said, about being, a pillar of knowledge, a guru, if you like, in that subject matter, and that was it. So it had to be said, it had to be clear, and I defined that very clearly, at the very beginning, and that really did help me because it guided the decisions I made. It made me to be tenacious at certain points. It made me to oppose certain things. It made me to embrace other things as well, and it made me to insist on things that I believe were essential for me to get to where I wanted to get to. So if I didn't have that clarity and vision and purpose for myself,
Yeah.
anything would have gone. I would have, jumped, I would have changed jobs 10, 4, 5 times, but there's a reason why I've stayed and maintained, my position where I am. And it's because of that clarity of my own vision.
Right. Absolutely. That's very insightful. So I will focus more on your growing up in Nigeria rather than your stay in the
Oh,
UK,
yeah, sure, sure.
because the larger number of cohorts in the fellowship program, they are based in Lagos, at one
Right.
point is based in Ibadan, in Oyo State in Nigeria. Just to kind of being able to relate, to where they are and their
Mm,
experience. So you kind of mentioned a bit about, your growing up at OAU and things like
mm.
that. But my question is, as an average young person growing up in Nigeria, how did you find the motivation to actually, encourage yourself to push beyond the normal boundaries? Because, normal boundaries, just go to uni, graduate 2122 and start looking for a job. But your story transcend that, because I mean, second year, pushing yourself into a competition and coming to Lagos for the same competition, and then getting a job and combining schooling and job. That's not a very, usual kind of story that you hear. So how did you find that motivation to go on that path?
That's a very good question, Femi. And I would be lying if I said that my family didn't have a part to play. My upbringing did. So I am the last of the family of three. I got an older brother, older sister, and you know, I'd not always been the top of the pack in school. In primary school, I was bottom three. You know, most of the time, and I remember my parents always using my older ones as an example. That look at how well they're doing. What is wrong with you? I remember very well one day when I came back with my report card, and my dad looked at it and said, I'm sure the guy that comes first in your class, his head is not half as big as your own. you know, and there was a lot of challenge, from my parents. And it wasn't just talking me down like that. I remember my dad sitting down with me evenings after evenings, going through my math assignments, going through my homeworks, and doing these things with me. And it developed, a sense of responsibility in me. And I started spending less time going to play football with the neighborhood kids, and spend more time indoors studying and trying to get ahead. Especially when I was being compared to my siblings, I'm like, no, I don't want to be you know, the odd one out, and that challenged me, and created in me a bit of a competitive spirit or competitive nature, especially because the guy that was coming first in my class was my neighbor as well. So there was a drive that was created in me, from when I was young. So by the time I got to my primary five, primary six, I started to become, the top three students in class. Getting to secondary school, I never stopped being, the top students in my class, till I finished secondary school. But it was that competitive nature, that was drilled into me by my parents, particularly my dad, pushing me that, look, you can be better than this, And by the time I finished secondary school, my journey in winning competitions didn't start in university. I actually started in secondary school, where I won a national arts competition, and that was organized by the Ministry of Youth, Arts and Culture. I don't know if that ministry still exists today, but and my art teacher used to push me into those things as well. That, look, this guy, you can do this, you can do this. So there were people that believed in me, right. And that pushed me, and it made me to start to push myself as well, and to believe in myself. So I believed in myself, and I decided that, look, I want to be the best, because people have told me that actually you can be the best. And because of that, I had that drive to always want to push myself forward, which is why when I got to IFE second year, that competition came up. I said, I'm going to do this, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes, when I reflect back on those days, you have that support system around you, apart from your parents, even your neighbors, kind of to push you. And I think there are some of those things are missing currently in Nigeria, and young people are kind of missing that, fan base, that challenges them and, kind of spur them, into and what you said is kind of leading me to the next question, say that so you explain the grip process, and for me, that speaks to a lot into self-development process. So what would you say, it's your own kind of process in terms of self-development?
Mm. Right. So just before I answer that question, going back to what I said earlier on about, my motivation and all that, just to say, if you don't have anyone to motivate you or drive you or push you, drive yourself, push yourself. I had a friend in uni that used to give me an example of an agama lizard. That when an agama lizard jumps and successfully lands, it will nod like 3 or 4 times. Say it's saluting itself, saying, yes, I did it. Yes. It's not waiting for anybody to clap for him. He celebrates himself. I mean, it's a very silly analogy, but the point is, be your own cheerleader as well. Be your own personal trainer, as well. Stir yourself up, and set yourself targets. Look around you, and if there's nobody to drive yourself. It's at the end of the day, you've got to take personal responsibility for your own success and for your own failure. And it would be unfortunate if you don't have that community and that village, that helps grow and develop people, which is a shame, but regardless of what the macro environment is, in your own micro environment, create all the positive energy, get inspirations. For some people, it's, having a relationship with God, drawing wisdom and inspiration from, the scriptures, from the Bible or whatever, and find positive, crowds around you as well to drive you forward. So to the question you asked, Femi, about my own personal development plan and process and what have you. So like I mentioned, from my early days in uni, I don't want to paint the wrong picture that I was a geek. I wasn't by any stretch of imagination a geek. I played hard, and I worked hard as well. I was one of those that used to frequent the female hostel a lot. I was just doing evangelical ministry, so nothing more than that. The point is, in spite of my very active, social life, I knew when it was time to separate myself, to study. So I always had time to read. Like I said, I had a wide range of materials and resources, that I used to, consume. I went beyond the recommended, reading materials on my coursework. I had loads of other materials, and I was consuming them because they were interesting. I was consuming them because I wanted to know it. I was keen about it. So you've got, I mean, it works for different people. Some people are morning people. I know a chap that wakes up 4 a.m. in the morning, and he starts his day early and he uses that time to do deep work. There's a book by someone, I think it's Carl Newton, called Deep Work. It's a very good book as well. I can't remember, I don't know if I got the author's name right, but Deep Work, that's the name of the book. It talks about, finding your sweet spot, the time when you are most productive. It could be 1.5 hours or 2 hours in a day, that you could separate out. You need to find that point. There are people that they read best at night. They're able to concentrate and they're able to absorb and assimilate information. There are others that they need to be, in a noisy environment where, there's noise around them. But if you put them in a very quiet place and they're isolated, they struggle, to get information into themselves. So first of all, know yourself. So for me, really, it was usually at night, when everybody has gone and retired, because I'm a people person. I love to be around people. When everybody's awake, I want to be awake with them and, and all that. But as soon as all that, the party is over, I don't pick up my pillow and sleep. So nobody sees me studying, nobody sees me toiling. All they see is this bubbly guy playing around with us, and then come exam time, they see my A, they go, ah, you know. So yeah, so that has been my own finding my own quiet moment, and usually it's in the night.
Right.
I take the night to study.
Okay, that's good. So I think the message there is know yourself and know the best option, for you, because there is price to pay. So if you want to pay during the day or you want to pay during the night, know yourself and do it accordingly, which is good. Okay, so talking about the greed aspect, you mentioned that it's the way you respond to obstacles, and I know responding to obstacle means that there are some interpersonal skills that
Mm,
need to come alive and you need to use. So what would you say are your maybe top 3 or 4 interpersonal skills that people need to focus on and ensure that they are fully developed?
Uh, that's a very loaded question, Femi. We could do a whole seminar on that subject alone.
Yeah.
So obstacles now, it depends on what the obstacle is, and more often than not, it's usually other people, in the work environment, and if it's not other people, if it is, a personal issue, then you just need to accept it. You need to own it, and seek help. Don't die in silence. Look, nobody has it all together. Everybody has, one issue, one challenge, one area of need. I mean, we're not all perfect, and in that area where you might be struggling, but somebody who's thriving, just latch yourself onto that person, and let them help you soar and rise, like them. It can be learned. A lot of things can be learned in life, and association helps, in picking up certain behavioral characters and traits and stuff like that. But when it comes to more of if it's external, like other people, and there's no personal obstacle and challenges, this is where a lot of diplomacy, tact, and finesse is required. I think first and foremost is don't take it personal. It's business. So look at it from a professional lens as okay, there's an issue, there's a challenge. Because the moment you take it personal, you become emotive. Your judgment gets clouded, and you're not able to separate the facts from the emotions. And you wouldn't be able to make a strong case for change or innovation. So first of all, remove yourself from the situation, and don't take it personal. Don't say that this person doesn't like me, this person, even though their action and behavior, that is the inference you can make from it. That's the message that is passed across. And that's the way I felt as well, from my first experience of my terrible line manager, that this person doesn't like me, you know. But I didn't respond that way. I removed myself away from it, and I looked at it, from, more of a professional point of view, looking at what are the things that are happening, what are the things that are going on, and things have to be escalated, at some point to, more senior people to help, to ask the question, engage reasonably, all right? Find out what's helped me to understand this. What am I not doing right? What is the problem? What is the issue? What is your expectation? Because sometimes it could be a misalignment of expectations, you know, causing those kind of frictions and issues. So align yourself, with those expectations, and yeah. So have that reasonable engagement, communicate, talk through it, have an open, honest conversation. Don't be emotive or emotional about it. You know, um, be very factual, be very clear. put your emotions aside, whether it is fear, whether it is anger, or whatever it is. Don't go there crying and, don't go there steaming and boiling. You know, have an even tone. Remember, communication, is, 80% is it the tone of your voice or your body language? And, it's only 10 or 20% what you actually say. So in communication, watch that. Watch your body language. Watch the tone of your voice, because those things could become barriers to actually achieving a resolution and positive outcome.
Yeah, I think communication would be one of my top one of my top three in terms of interpersonal skill as well, and that can be verbal, right, written, and just like you've explained it, tone of voice and your body language, very important to master them because they play a lot of role in how people perceive you and how they open up their world to be able
Exactly.
to help you, in time. I have another question here. So she says, in times of believing in a cause beyond yourself, you talk about your desire to help develop structures in Nigeria. When it did not work out as planned, was it easy for you to move on? And did you have a plan B prior to that?
Hmm. That was somebody that was listening. um, to be honest, I didn't have a plan B. You know, um, I had just the plan A. And this is where, I talked about, this is where personal innovation comes in, when you face those kind of obstacles, you know. And for me, this particular one was one that was, at the moment, was just too big for me. It was institutional, it's about a particular system, of governance, and corruption was embedded inside of it, you know. And at the time, remember, I just graduated from school, so I didn't quite have the clout, to start to change how commissioners and ministers would act or behave. It was almost above me. If you see what I mean. And at that point in time, I had to make a decision. Do I go into bed with these people, make those proposals, and you know become corrupt as well, or do I step back, and rethink or re-strategize? Interestingly, the proposals that I put forward eventually was one of the things that led to the pri- public-private sector partnership in Lagos by Loma, where they started, commissioning, private waste collection companies, and the embezzlement that they carried out in that process was unbelievable. Because there are loads of companies that are being paid, but they weren't collecting any waste, and they weren't doing anything with those waste other than chucking them in Ojota landfill, which is not what the whole process was all about. And they eventually they secured World Bank funding for that project, for that program. And that was, part of my master's, course, which I shared with them, at the time. So I mean, it's a bit challenging sometimes, when it's so much bigger than you, and it almost feels like a tail wagging a dog, or you might feel like a tail wagging a dog. In that kind of situation, you just have to uh, take a step back, re-strategize and be realistic. Remember, I talked about the ideal and the reality. There's a gap between the two. And I thought one of the ways that I could bridge that gap is number one, make my voice louder, and the opportunity came for me to contribute and start to develop my competence, in this field. Whilst I haven't quite managed to, translate all that to interventions in projects in Nigeria, I'm hoping one day, you know, the doors will open, the opportunities will arise, and we'll be able to do more, in developing countries. And I've been in conversations with a sustainability network of professionals around the world. They're achieving scholars like myself, and they also have interest in interventions in terms of more scale rural projects, that could be starters or catalysts, for the proper way to do things. So there is stuff in the background, but it hasn't quite gained much traction. So I didn't have a plan B, but it was about plan A, and as soon as I hit the roadblock, I had to recalibrate, so I didn't give up on the world of sustainability. As you can see, I've gone on to become a chartered environmentalist, and I've been doing sustainability consultancy for over 10 years. So it made me stronger and better, because, I didn't get those projects off and running, but I got to do other things, in another sphere, in a different, space, if you like.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can add to that is that the vision is for an appointed time. Just like you alluded to your talk, there is a price to pay, and one of those price is that time. You may need to wait, a little longer, for that vision to actually come to pass. And the fact that you went and didn't turn out the way you expected it doesn't mean that nothing has happened, because in terms of the depth of understanding of the environment, I think you have more than a fair share, to learn. And, from where you are now, going back, definitely, it's definitely going to be a different approach. It's at a different level, and, with a whole lot of more important collaboration, to go on with. I mean, my point is, look, if you have a vision and it seems that, oh, it's not working, it doesn't mean you need to give it up. I think it's just to step back, just like you did, develop yourself more. Maybe you need more tenacity, more level of understanding, and further higher up helicopter view before you can actually do that. And I think when it's now time to do it, you do it in a better, better way, more strategic way, and it will be easier, than that. So I think, but that's a very great question. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Femi, just to further add to what you said, is the other thing I also mentioned. I don't know if anybody caught that. Is that I've joined a network of sustainability professionals as well. Who are looking at doing similar projects. In developing countries all around the world. So it hasn't died. So now I'm joining alliances with like-minded people, because apparently I can't do it alone, so join forces with others, and build, a strong team that could probably be, make
Absolutely. And even on Starting Point platform, one of the vision is that collaboration between people in diaspora and people back at home, so that people can exchange, ideas, proposition that can benefit. Because I always believe that God made us Nigeria for a reason, irrespective of where we are, in the world, whether in Europe, in Canada, in America, in Asia. There is something, that we need to contribute back home, because if we don't do it, I don't know who we expect, to go back, and do it for us. So that's there. My last question for you, it's been, so insightful this evening. Thank you so much. My last question would be, now you're dipping your feet into the world of entrepreneurship. There are some people on the court that are also looking to take that step, either now or in the nearest future. So what will be your top tips for them to look out for when they're trying to develop a business or starting out on their own?
Hi, good question as well. I think the key thing again, all those principles apply, so curiosity, time, and application. So when I say curiosity, that's also linked with awareness. So asking the question, about what you want to do, why are you trying to do it? Get all the information you can, educate yourself, on that particular area. And I am spending, a fair bit of investment, educating myself, in this sector that I want to go into. I've joined a mentoring network of about 200, entrepreneurs, that are doing the same thing I'm doing. Um, Incidentally, I've got an appointment at 9 o'clock tonight with um, a very successful, one of the top entrepreneurs in my sector that I'm going into, you know, just to pick his brains as well, to learn from him. There's no point reinventing the wheel. Stand on the shoulders of giants. Find those people that have gone ahead of you, and learn from them. Don't make the mistakes they've made. You can leapfrog them, you know, by by doing that, So, the curiosity and awareness, ask the questions, do your research, understand, you know, everything you can about the sector you're going into. There's a statistic that says that 80% of new businesses fail, within their first 5 years. Now, you don't want to be in that particular statistic. You want to be the 20% that succeed. And those that succeed, they don't succeed accidentally. They succeed purposefully. So don't go in blind with just your raw passion. Passion is great. It will take you far, but only so far. You need to support that passion, with sound understanding, knowledge. You know, for businesses to succeed very well, they are underpinned by systems, you know, and if you don't have the right systems, you fall apart. And the easiest way to get the right systems is just partner with people that already have those systems. You know, I paid some money, in order to get a business in a box from a very successful business. So I have all of their systems and their process. It came at a price, you know, but what it means is I've got that side sorted, you know, and so the awareness, curiosity, get all the information you need, then take the time, you know, have a very clear plan, set your goals and set your targets, and be realistic in terms of your time frame. Then apply yourself. Remember, it is direction, not intention, that determines your destination. And direction means action. Direction means taking steps along your path. So I think that would be my answer.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. On behalf of the 2020 fellowship, SPZ fellowship cohort, I think I want to say a very big thank you to you. It's been a pleasure, and I think it's been a very insightful evening. And just like I said, I need to go back and listen. I'll listen again to the talk. It's been so powerful, and I just want to thank everybody that took out time to join us this evening. Don't forget, you can go back and listen to the talk again on our YouTube channel, the Starting Point Zone, and I think we'll benefit from it. Next week, we are not going to have any special guest, but it's going to be an open day. If you want to know more about Starting Point Zone, you have questions to ask about the next year's fellowship program, or you have people that you would like to suggest, that they should come on the program. Next week is the day to come and ask all the questions, and it will be great to have you. Thank you, especially for people that are joining us for the first time today. Thank you so much for joining. Tunde, thank you so much. We really appreciate.
Thank you very much for having me and giving me such a platform to share my little experience with you guys. I wish you all the best in your, your ventures and in your journey, and be prepared to fail forward. don't be afraid of failure. You just learn from it and find your flow. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So have a good evening, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.